Right. Okay. Good evening, everybody. It's a wonderful opportunity tonight to be able to learn Torah together. And when we come together to learn, there should always be a higher level of meaning to that, and a higher level of desire to connect with whatever it is that we're learning. And tonight, we know we're here to learn, not just for the sake of learning, but we're here to commemorate the Yarhtzeits, a number of Yarhtzeits. So firstly, to Denyse, Blumenfeld, that's Ivan's mother, Daniella, Beilah, but Yaakov, Reuven, and also his aunt, Freda, Magid, Shulamit ben Yaakov, Reuven, also whose Yarhtzeit falls today. And then, of course, to the Josselowskys, for Morris, Moshe ben Yaakov, Nochum, it's his Yarhtzeit, was Yarhtzeit earlier today. And then next week is Baum, Michael ben Avraham is his Yarhtzeit. And what I thought was just to try and learn something together to really in their schus. And also, in addition to that, I'd also like to mention to Ivan Rendel, Yitzhak ben Rosa, Chana. We should have a refuah Sheleimah. Please God, we should always be able to share only good news with each other. So what I wanted to discuss tonight was really something that's always been on my mind. And we're giving a shir in the honor of the Yarhtzeits of all these people. We're learning in the merit of people to should have a refuah Sheleimah, and it should be for everybody, for whoever needs any of this additional spiritual power. They should all just feel that they should feel that refuah, they should feel that power, they should feel that extra impetus that we're giving them. But the question is, like, now, is it real? You know, we speak about it all the time, and we say, for example, at a shiva house, we'll say that we know that the words Mishnah have the same letters as Neshamah. You just have to switch them around a little bit. And so therefore we learn Mishnah because we say that we'll be able to elevate the Neshamah, through the learning of the Mishnah. And it really has often, we accept that. But I wanted to look into it a little bit more. So this week, please God, we're going to look at the elevation of the departed soul in a way, on a conceptual level, and what we are supposed to do and how we're supposed to do it. And we'll learn some wonderful sources, which I'll learn through with everybody. And please God, will just give us a greater meaning and a greater depth of understanding of what this is all about. And then next week, please God, for the second part of the series, we'll do a few ideas on Kaddish itself. So what I'd like to do is just to share my screen so that everybody can follow with the sources if they'd like to. Most of the sources, unfortunately, are in Hebrew, as I didn't get the opportunity to translate them, most of them, but I will translate as we go through and bring out the most salient and important points within every source. So I hope that everybody will be able to follow and please God, benefit and learn from tonight. Okay. So if we begin, there's an interesting Rabbeinu Yonah. Rabbeinu Yonah was one of the great Rishonim, one of the great early sages. And Rabbeinu Yonah says he's got a book called on tshuva. It's a book around tshuva. It's a book around trying to find that space in which Rabbeinu Yonah, felt that he had a certain major avera in his life that he had to do some type of tshuva for. What was that major avera? The apocryphal, I think that's the right word, story is that he was one of the people who was in some way supportive of the burning of the Rambam's books. And then he realized, when you take a bit of a step back, like everything else, when all the emotion gets moved, you take a step back and say, oh, wow, hold on a second, maybe I did the wrong thing. And so he wrote his book. And in that book, he writes about tshuva. And in part of that tshuva, he writes what's called the Egeret HaTshuva. It's a letter around tshuva. And he says the following, which is such an interesting thing that I'd never heard of. And that's why I thought to start out with it. He says a woman should be careful, a woman, not a man. A woman should be careful to daven in the evening, in the morning, and in the afternoon. With a soft tefillah at the end of her tefillah, that she should daven specifically, that for her children, for her sons and for her daughters, that they should be Yirei Shamayim, that they should have great awe and reverence of Hashem, V'shiyu banea matzlichim b'Torah, and that her children, her sons and her daughters should be successful in the learning of Torah. Why? Ki ikar zchuta shel isha le'olam haba shebanea ovdim laHashem yitbarach v'osim retzono v'yirei moto. Because the essential zchut that a woman will get, merit that a woman will get in olam haba, is that her children will serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They will do the will of Hashem. They will have Yirat Hashem. They'll all have HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Uchesheh hi bebeit olama, and when she is up in her final resting place in the great worlds above with HaKadosh Baruch Hu and all the spiritual worlds, uvaneha yesh b'libam Yirat Shamayim, and her children have in their hearts Yirat Shamayim, this awe reverence of Hashem. For oskim b'Torah mitzvahs, and they learn Torah, and they do mitzvot. Nechshav la hadavar hu ke'ilu hi b'chayim v'osa kol hamitzvot. When the children do these mitzvahs and learn Torah and have belief in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so then what? It's as if she is alive and doing those mitzvahs herself. And that is when she is on the highest levels of Olam Haba. Because why? Because her children are doing these great mitzvahs. And that's an unbelievable thing. Because here we see from Roberto Jonas that he's saying that it's not about just doing things, but the fact is that the more we do and the more we're committed, the more we're able to find that connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not in the memory of, but just because we do them because somebody taught us that, because someone pushed us towards that, because we as parents have educated our children into that, and our parents have educated us into that, then that in itself is a great source of great merit for the departed soul. Where does he get that from? So he gets that from a Gemara in Sanhedrin. So the Gemara in Sanhedrin is it's quite esoteric, because it's talking about they speak about different people who are who do get the world to come and people who don't get the world to come, and it speaks about how come the king Ammon was a terrible king, a wicked. We haven't got time to go into, but he was terribly wicked. So how come he doesn't get the brand of not having a place in the world to come? And the reason is, the Gemara says, because it's very simple, because of his children. Because his child Chizkiyahu became the greatest king. Now, says the Gemara, and this is really the bottom line, or just the shura, is the Gemara says, that the son, that the son confers merit upon the father. It's not the other way around. The father doesn't confer merit on the son. The son confers merit on the father by virtue of the fact that the son does certain things. And in this case, the son, it means all children, as we saw from that source in Roberto Jonas above. And having said that, then we need to start looking and try and understand where else we see this. And the places that we see this are all over. And what I wanted to try and discuss with you is a little bit about that. Because here we have in one of the tshuvas, one of the responsa of the Rashba. The Rashba was also a great Rishon, one of the great primary commentaries on the Torah, around a little bit later than Rashi. Unbelievably brilliant people. They knew everything. They understood Torah in a very deepest way. And what he says is this concept that that the son confers merit on the father. The father does not confer merit on the son. But then he says, hold on a second. Where do we get that from? That mi sheheichin be'erev Shabbos, a person who prepares Erev Shabbos, yochel b'Shabbos, eats on Shabbos. Mi sheloichin Erev Shabbos. But if you don't prepare Erev Shabbos, you can't eat on Shabbos because you can't cook. What does it mean? It means it's very simple. That if we prepare our children, our families to follow in the line that we want them to follow in, so then therefore they will be the ones who will bring merit onto us. Okay. And that we find a practical thing. And everybody knows this. In Shul, on a Shabbos, the Ramah tells us, here in the bold, it is our custom to remember the names of the departed after the reading of the Torah, and to make a special blessing on the Oiskim B'Tzorchei Tzibur. So it's our custom that we have to mention the people who've departed. We call that a haskara. It's just a mentioning of the person who's departed. And when we do that, we do it and we give money in their merit. And why do we do this? So the Orach Chaim, the Shulchan Aruch, and other places says the following: Nahagu lidor tzedakah b'Yom Kippurim. Ba'adam Eitim, he says we do the same thing on Yom Kippur. You know, we often forget what Yizkor really means. Yizkor, the word Yizkor means remember. And we say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yizkor, that the memory of the person that has passed on should be kind of uppermost in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's mind. Why? Because I'm giving tzedakah in their merit. I'm doing something that is elevating their Neshamah. And that is brought out in Halakha. Nahagu lidor tzedakah. We have a minhag to give tzedakah on Yom Kippur. Ba'adam Eitim, on behalf of those who have passed away. Umaskirin nishmotehem dehameitim gam ken yesh lehem kapara b'yom kippurim. Why do we do that? Because, and this is a whole shir in itself, but because we believe that the neshamas of the people who have passed on also get a kapara on Yom Kippur. They also get some type of atonement on Yom Kippur. And because they get an atonement on Yom Kippur, the only way that they can get that is by virtue of the things that we do in this world on their behalf. And comes along the Mishnah Berurah, and the Mishnah Berurah says that when we give kashin, when we give on behalf of somebody else, then it's as if that person who has passed on is alive and is giving the tzedakah himself, which is quite an unbelievable thing. That we, by our doing an action in another person's merit, they kind of like become alive by virtue of the fact that we're doing things for them or in their merit. The Vilna Gaon, the great sage, the Vilna Gaon, as he got older, some of his Talmidim approached him and they saw that he was crying. And they said to him, "Why are you crying?" And he said, because in this world, for a few hundred rand, I mean, he was talking about kopecks, but a few hundred rubles, whatever the case is, I can do the simple mitzvah of tzitzit. I can buy some strings and I can tie them onto my garment and I can do the mitzvah of tzitzit. And it's a mitzvah. It's an easy mitzvah to do. It's a simple mitzvah to do. He says, but as I pass on, as I'm now getting old and I'm realizing I'm going to pass on, no matter how much I have, no matter what I do, I'm not able to fulfill the mitzvah of tzitzit. Why? Because, as we'll see later on, the way it describes it, is that I'll be in the world of the nefashot, in the world of the souls, which is a spiritual world, and then tzitzit belong in this world, in the world of materialism. And if that's the case, the only place I can do mitzvahs is in this world. And now we've learned and we've seen that the way we can assist the soul is by ensuring that we do those mitzvot on their behalf. Okay. Now everybody, just we're going to do something called from a sefer called the Yarhtzeits. It's a book of Musar. So because it's a book of Musar, I'm not Muslim, I just wanted to share these ideas with you. A book of Musar means that what he's trying to do is say, hold on a second, maybe what we're thinking is not always correct, and we have to lift our level a little bit more. And so therefore what he discusses is how we show kibud av v'aim, how we show honor to our parents once they've passed on by the things that we do. And so what I'd like to do is to go look through it. Again, I'm sharing you the ideas with him. It's not my opinion. I just want to share this with you because it's important that we understand how certain things are seen in the eyes of our great sages. Look, you can see he's from 1815. Was a very, very powerful man. Well known and really is someone to take to heart, just at least, if not on a practical level, at least conceptually what he's saying. So having said that and covered myself, that's like my indemnity. So then I'm going to say the following. He says the following: V'ikara kavod. What is the essence of the honoring of a parent who passes on? Sheyeh mechabdo b'moto v'chol asher b'kocho lema'aved la'nech nafshe. He says, the ultimate respect and honor that a person can give to a departed parent is to do everything that they can in their power to ensure that their nefesh, that their neshama, that their soul is able to rest. And how do you do that? It's got to be done daily. And you can't forget. And he says, now look at this, what he says here. And again, I'm not casting aspersions at anybody. I'm just mentioning this case. Lo como Rabbi me'amaya aretz she'enam zoichim esavim v'imam. It's not like the Amars, the simple people, the people who don't really think and are not conscious of all these things. They only remember their mother and their father b'yom Yarhtzeits. They only remember on the Yarhtzeits. And then they say Kaddish, and they give a little bit of a tzedakah, and they learn a little bit of Torah, and that's what they do. It says, Oy lahem la'avot. Oh, shame, their poor fathers, their poor mothers. They're waiting for their children to lift them out of the negative spaces of the spiritual world. It says, because, when people do a little bit, when all they're doing is one little action once a year, that doesn't really help much. He says the truth is maybe they shouldn't do such a thing, where they say Kaddish and they say maybe they'll say the half Torah and they don't even understand what they're saying. And the truth is that their brachas aren't real brachas because they don't understand what it's saying. And he says, so in such a case, such a situation, instead of being an oneg, an enjoyment for their parent, for the person, it actually becomes something negative. Wow. So if that's the case, what the Beilah Yarhtzeits is saying is that what we have to do, and it's beautiful. He says, Cain, therefore, what should we do? So, Ra'ui laben, it is appropriate for a child. Shekol yomei chayav, all his life. He should always see his parents' image, the passed on parents' image in their mind. And it should be that they're crying out and they're saying, B'ni yedidi, my beloved child, help me. Help me to lift up. Help me to go closer to the Ribono Shel Olam. Help me to go closer to my true spiritual essence. And how do we do that? He says, Yeshagur piv lomar midei yom v'yom. So it has to be customary in your mouth to say and to do things on a daily basis. And just before we carry on, that really is what when a parent passes away, and I've seen it with Ivan over the year, and I've seen it with Baum, and I've seen it now as well with the Josselowskys, that it's not about a once a year occasional thing. It's this consistency in being in shul, in davening, in doing chesed, in doing tzedakah, in ensuring that there's never a space and never a time where that person is forgotten. And that person is not just forgotten, but not just forgotten, they remember that, but rather they're doing something practical and something physical and something material to ensure that that person's memory is sustained in their minds and therefore in the minds of the people around them. And then he says, the most beautiful tefillah, it's the most beautiful prayer which I'd like to share with you. The Beilah Yarhtzeits says, this is it. May it be your will, Hashem, God, our God, and the God of our fathers, that you, Hashem, should receive barachamim with mercy, with varatzon, and willingly. Every good deed that I do, whether it is in thought, whether I say it, whether I do something specifically that is a physical action. Etc. And that every single thing that I'm doing should be in the schus of the restful elevation of the soul of my father, my mother, whoever the person is that has passed away. It should be your will, Hashem, that their nefesh, that their soul should be bound up in the bindings of ultimate life. And that is a tefillah that he says it's a tefillah that he felt was something to say where it gives us the impetus and the understanding and the focus and the direction that the things that we do, not only during the year of our Vedas, but after it as well. If I know that my late mother, Baruch Hashem, my mother's Baruch Hashem, but if I know that my late parents was always willing to give a smile to someone, and then I do that as well, there's a massive thing in giving a smile to someone. People need a bit of a lift up all the time. So I'm doing that in her merit. and it's constantly giving her an upliftment in this world of nefashot, this world of souls that we don't always understand. Okay, says the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. So the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch we're all quite familiar with. We know it's the Rav Gansfried. He took the whole space of the Shulchan Aruch and he brought it down into a Kitzur. A Kitzur is like a reduction of this massive work into something small, kind of more like easy to understand. And here he says, even though the saying of Kaddish and davening are helpful to the soul of the parents, yet they're not the main thing, he says. And sometimes we get caught up in Kaddish, Kaddish, Kaddish. And the reality is that during this time of COVID, this has been one of the most difficult parts for anybody who's become an Avel, because we are so caught within this understanding of the parameters of Kaddish is the thing I need to do. Comes the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch and says, hold on a second, they're fundamental, but they're not the main thing. The most important thing is that the children walk in the path of righteousness, because with that they gain heavenly favor for their parents. The most important thing is that the children do good things. As he says here at the bottom, but if a son walks in the path of righteousness and acts properly, he certainly honors his father, and thereby he honors him in the world in the eyes of men and confers glory on him in the other world in the presence of the Holy One, blessed be he. And the Holy One, blessed be he, has mercy on him and seats him on his throne of honor. That's not my statement. And that's not even the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch statement. That is a statement straight out of the Zohar. That's the great mystical work, that when we do things, the soul elevates itself closer and closer and closer to sit next to Ribono Shel Olam himself. And therefore he says, during our lives, we as parents, we as people who have children who are going to take on these things, the next generation, instruct your children to observe one certain mitzvah with particular care. This struck me enormously. What do? We say to our children, we've got so many mitzvahs, there's 613 mitzvahs, and there's subs and some, there's thousands of things to do. What is one thing? What is one thing that we can instruct them to do that they will take on because they feel it's important to me, to us? And when they take that on, if they fulfill the mitzvah, it counts for more than saying the Kaddish. It's also a good course to follow for a person who has no sons and only daughters, because it's difficult for a daughter in some communities. They can't say Kaddish, and if they can't say Kaddish, so then what do? And that is really one of the most painful things to see often in where you have a shiva house where there are only girls, or only women, because the feeling is that they can't do anything. They don't know what to do. Yes, the Lithuanian practice, by the way, was that women said Kaddish. Wasn't that they didn't say Kaddish? It was that they did say Kaddish with another man saying Kaddish, would seem to be the way it was done. Nowadays, there are different ways of doing it, but I feel very strongly that if there are only women in the family, that they should say Kaddish, and they should try and be part of a minyan. Obviously, they can't make the minyan, but they should sit there close to a person saying Kaddish and say Kaddish together with them, because that is something that they can do on a practical level, and it also assists with the comforting. But, says the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, if they're unable to do that, there's that one single mitzvah that has been taught by their parent, that is the elevation of the Neshamah of the parent. Okay. So we've learned quite a lot, but there's two more things that I want to share with you, and because I think that they're important. The first one is a letter which was written by Rav Yitzhak Hutner. Rav Yitzhak Hutner was a fascinating man, unbelievably fascinating man. He was born in 1906. He was from the great yeshivas of Warsaw. He went to Slobodka, where he really grew up. But in Slobodka and in these places, he found his mentor. Who was his mentor? His mentor ultimately was Rav Avraham Yitzchak HaKohen Cook, Rav Cook. And in meeting Rav Cook, he just completely changed the type of person he was. He was initially a very kind of like a Litvischer misnagid, in meeting Rav Kook, he changed himself completely, and he has a whole conversation with the number of people about how he changed and the power of change and the power of finding. Sometimes we go along a certain path, and then we say, "Hold on a second, that's not really where I want to be. It's not really where I want to be, and I'm stuck in it, but I want to change." And that's what he did, completely changed. And he befriends people, Rav Soloveitchik, the Lubavitcher Rebbe. I mean, these are unbelievably powerful people from all different walks and from the whole spectrum. And so what he becomes is this man who's this great Litvischer Talmid Chochem, who also has a Hasidic bent. And it's the manner in which he carried himself was like a Hasidic Rebbe. You see pictures of him. Fortunately, I didn't bring one, but you see pictures of him, you think he's a Hasidic Rebbe, but he wasn't. He was really a Litvischer, real kind of misnagid. But he changed to take that warmth and that soul and that Neshamah, because he felt that was what he needed in order for him to achieve his full understanding and his full avodas Hashem. What does he do? He takes this concept of the fact that a child is able to merit for the father, and he takes another Gemara and he links the two. And he says that according to the Gemara says that a child is the legs of his father. So he says, "V'lama dafka regel?" Why should a child be the legs of the father? The child could be anything. Lama ein haben nechshav liyado shel aviv? Why do we not call him as the right hand person of the father? Rak b'nei adam b'hai alma nechshavim lemahalchim. Says, you know what? You have to understand that in this world that we live, this world, every day, 2021, we are considered to be mahalchim. We are considered to be people that are able to move. What a deep concept. When we walk, the fact that we are able to walk should give us this consciousness of saying, hold on, I can move. I don't have to stay static. I can move from one place to another. The only time we don't move is when we stand in front of the Ribono Shel Olam, in front of Hashem, when we say the Shemona Esrei, the Amidah. And why don't we move? We put our legs together. We don't move because at that point in time, we are like Malachim. We are like angels. And says Rav Hutner, angels, the Neshamot, and all the great souls that have gone on high are called Omdim. They are called standers. So they have walkers and we have standers. And we are the walkers. We are the Mahalchim. We are the ones who move. And the Malachim and the souls are the ones that stand still. And therefore, he says that that in the way we need to understand it is that when a person passes on, he becomes free from the, call it in inverted commas, the burden, the yoke of mitzvot. He says the problem is, if you don't have mitzvahs, if you don't have that space of growth, there's no way of elevating yourself. Our role in this world is to elevate ourselves, to find connection to spirituality as much as we can via the performance of mitzvot. So he says that all we have is Yishaneh Rak Amidah b'Madrega Achas. They are wherever they passed away, that person passed away, that is the level there they stay, and they cannot move on their own. Legs are the things, says Rav Hutner, that give us the ability to move. And that's what it means, that the child is the legs of the father, which means if a person finds themselves in a static space, if he left after him a child who is committed to growth, to personal growth, to religious growth, to spiritual growth, to helping other people, then what? Then the child makes the father like someone who can walk, even when that child, that parent, that person has passed on, is in a state of Amidah. And therefore he says, it should be our will that we, those who are in this world, find the space in ourselves to do whatever we can to be the legs of our parents, of our grandparents, of our uncles and aunts who may have passed on, of our siblings who may have passed on, because they are static. And we in this world, as we walk from here to there, we also are able to do a mitzvah from here to there. And the mitzvahs are so broad and there's so many. And that being the case, what we need to do is find the space to find the space to do that. And really, it's therefore, in conclusion, I'd like to bring what this book called the Sefer Ahavat Chesed. The Sefer Ahavat Chesed is the Sefer of the Chofetz Chaim. We all know the Chofetz Chaim. I mean, he was he's the one who spoke about Lashon Hara. He was a person who devoted his life to helping people. And one of the Sforim that he wrote, one of the books that he wrote, is this book called Ahavat Chesed. It's an unbelievable book. It teaches us how to do chesed. We think that just by helping others, we're doing chesed. Somebody comes to us, they need money, we give them money. Somebody helps, they need food, we give them food. And Baruch Hashem, and I must say, when we moved here from Cape Town, and Cape Town's a very generous place. People are very generous and they help a lot. But the level of chesed of the Yeshiva Mizrahi community that we've experienced is just mind-blowing. It's on such a different plane that it's difficult to even describe to anybody who's never experienced it. And I think people who have experienced loss or now illness over this COVID period, or anything, or not only loss, not only illness, but when a person has a baby, when a person moves into a new house, when things happen, people are so quick to find that space to assist, to be part of that. Of both the simcha and of the difficult times, and that really is something that we can be so proud of. This book, the Sefer Ahavat Chesed, gives us parameters in how to operate and how best to do it, and it's absolutely beautiful. But he's got a little note in it, and he's clearly in this note. He's quite tentative in saying what he wants to say, but it needs to be said. He feels. And so therefore he puts it down. And what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, in the next few minutes that we've got left, is to go through this Ahavat Chesed and to try and understand it. Before we do that, I just want to pause for a moment and ask, are there any questions so far? I mean, I've been throwing out sources and throwing out ideas, but I haven't asked to stop for any questions. Are there any questions anybody would like to ask anything at this point in time, or should we carry on? You can put it into the chat room if you'd like to. That might be easier. Okay, I think we'll carry on. So, the Chofetz Chaim here in his Sefer Ahavat Chesed says something. He said, okay, I'll let him say what he says. He says, Agav, by the way, I wanted to bring a very important point here. He says, so there are people in this world who want to do what's called make a Yad Vashem. A Yad Vashem, we have this place called Yad Vashem. What he says is that there are people who want to make this special memorial, something that will remind them and remind others of the person that they have lost. And they make for them a very beautiful matzeva, a very beautiful stone at their on their grave. And what do they do? Beautifully with special etching on it and beautiful golden letters and all the different flowers, beautiful things. And there's nothing wrong with those things. And he's not knocking that. He says, he says that people also, what they do, is they also like plant around it, like beautiful things that people can enjoy that. And they spend a lot of money on these things. And they think, and they think that in doing that, what they're doing is they're giving great nachat ruach, they're giving a restful space for the person who's passed on. And now he says something which is, I read it was quite intense. They are making such a huge mistake, says the Chofetz Chaim. He says, you know why? The truth be told, that when the person leaves this world, That person begins to recognize the real tachlis, the real essence of the importance of Torah and mitzvot. And the person will see that is the most important the most important produce that a person can have in all the worlds. And it's because and it's because of Torah and mitzvot and the things that we do to help other people. Those are the things that a person gets, that Neshama gets the most enjoyment from. And that's why it says, because a person now understands how important Torah and mitzvot are. Even the smallest mitzvah is important in their eyes. And he hopes and he prays that people will be able to do mitzvot for that. And he's hoping and praying that he doesn't have to worry about other people, because the people who want them to do Torah and mitzvot for him came. How can you say that it will give him any rest when he sees Shebanav Shekila Lehem Kol Koisav Chashav Lemechayav Shem Yatzilu Otam Min Adin, that a person feels that his children will assist in elevating his neshama and taking him out from the spaces of judgment? All they do is what? Mosifim Od Tanuga Hevel Kaela. They just bring in additional materialistic spaces that are not necessary for them. Now look what he says. So that's one thing. That's the musar. It's quite a big musar. It's quite a big musar to say that, what do we spend our money on in the merit of the departed? Are we going to spend our money on building a nice, a beautiful edifice to them for where they're resting, and planting a tree there so that the grave is in shade? Or are we going to do something else? And what is it that we should do? Says the Chofetz Chaim. He says, "V'yoter tov hayalahem." The best thing, what they should have done, is they shouldn't have spent so much money on the matzeva, on the stone, and shouldn't have made such fancy lettering and all the fancy little tzatzkas that are on the stone. What they should have done is what they should do is they should buy svarim, they should buy books that people can use. And give it to a shul, give it to a beit midrash, give it to a place where people will learn from those books. And this is where we get the practice. And in that book, you write, this book is given in the memory of the Neshamah of my father. Or take that money, make a charity fund of some sort, and do something that is sustainable. For the neshama of the forefathers. And in doing that, in doing something which is productive, in the learning, in the chesed, in the mitzvot, and we all know people who need. There's nobody on this Zoom or anywhere else in the world today, right, that doesn't know somebody who who needs a little bit of assistance. It could be they might need money for food. It could be they might need money to help them to get through university. It could be that they just need to know that they've got a friend, and we're going to spend our money on just helping them to feel like a mensch. All of those things in the merit of the departed, that lifts their neshamas higher and higher. Says, because every time you lend a person money, or you give a person a smile, or or a person reads that book that was done in the merit, that was donated in the merit of the departed, that's doing a mitzvah. And every mitzvah that we do is the thing that is going to send that neshama higher and higher and higher. And one of the most important mitzvahs that we have, without a doubt, is the learning of Torah. Now, there's in the mornings when we daven, we say what's called the birchat Torah, the brachas that we make before we learn Torah. And in those brachas that we make before we learn Torah, one of the things that we say is that we speak about all different things. It says, these are the things that a person will eat, the fruit of that effort in this world. But the capital you'll take with you to Olam Haba, and it goes through all the different things. Kibbut Avaim, all these different things. And then it says at the end, Talmud Torah keneged kulam. And the learning of Torah is equal to all of them. Now, it doesn't mean that you just learn Torah and you don't do anything for anybody else. That's not what it means. But what does it mean? So, one of the great Litvische Rosh Yeshiva, who for some reason his name just slipped my mind, said the following. He said, we understand that when we learn Torah, the way the Nefesh HaChaim, which is Rav Chaim Volozhin, that's the Vilna Gaon's greatest Talmud, explained, is that if there's one moment, 1 second, when there's no Torah being learned, the whole world will just disappear. It's like the fuel that keeps the world going. And if that's the case, Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam means that the learning of Torah is greater than everything else, because it is the greatest chesed that a person can do. However, let's just add on to that Gadol Talmud Torah, that the greatness of Talmud Torah is Shemei v'lidei Ma'aseh, because it helps us to do things properly. It helps us to do things in the merits of those who have departed. And if a person doesn't know anybody who's departed, they can find oikos. We can always link with somebody and say, in the merit of somebody that I knew, in the merit of somebody who passed away, of an Israeli soldier, somebody died in the Holocaust, or just somebody's parents I knew. Let's do something special. And in doing that, I not only create sustainability for their merit, but I also create that their Neshamah is constantly going higher and higher and higher every time that action is done. So I wanted to share that with you in the merit of all the Yarhtzeits today, and Be'ezrat Hashem, the Neshamas of everybody who've passed on in the merit of the mitzvahs that we do. Those Neshamas should have a high aliyah, going higher and higher, just from our learning. And please God, from the fact that you'll hopefully share some of these ideas with other people, and they'll share with other people. And every time those ideas are shared, and somebody is inspired by those things to do something more, that neshama is the neshama that gets the merit. And it just keeps going higher and higher, because it's just like this ripple effect. And our job in our lives is to create the start of that ripple effect in the merit of those who have passed on. And please God, in that way, we will only be able to see simchas, we'll be able to enjoy each other's company in a real way. We'll be able to come together and build and continue to build our community. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Ivan, I'm not sure if you'd like to say anything, or the Josses. I'm not sure if Jad is here as well, but please feel free to do so.
Sorry, my camera's not working, but thanks very much. That's really helpful. And everybody that's here, and to the Josselowskys with the Yarhtzeits, ours is on Friday. Judd, I think, is next week as well. So, yeah, it's been a hard year for all of us. And I think just bringing us all together to share in the same, I don't even know what the word is. It's been difficult, but at least with the community that we have, whether it's been on Zoom or physically here, with the shurim that you, Rabbonim, have given us over the last year and all the support, it's brought that additional comfort that we missed out not being at shul and saying Kaddish and be able to learn all together. So thank you very much for everything, and long life to all the others and to those who are going to have the Yarhtzeits in the next short time coming up.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I wish everybody a good rest of the week, and be safe, be well, inspire others, and have a beautiful week and a beautiful Shabbos coming up. God bless everyone.
Yeah, thank you.